And I see a green light, but I probably forgot to screen share. That's just a theme. I remember to
Yeah,
do everything else. Hell with
if
it.
we're not doing tech on air when we're supposed to be doing stream, then is it really even our show at this point?
Right. We should just change the name of our show to Tech Support.
No,
So,
good God, no.
I,
I could never be in IT. Those guys don't get paid enough, in my opinion. There's something about a broken computer that inherently frustrates me. And multiply that by like 1,000 hatred burning sun levels, and that's somebody else's computer. And no, you could not pay me enough to be in IT. Just no.
yeah, but in fairness, there are people who do it, so it pays enough. If there
Right.
are people who do a job, that job pays enough. That's
Fair enough.
if there are no people that do a job, then that job does not pay enough. Oh, or there's just not a
That is
demand for it. If there were a demand, it would pay. So, the smoking age got raised to 21. First question, before we get into everything that's wrong with that statement, let me ask you this: is that there because America wanted it to be there, or is that there because America's incompetent government needed a smoke screen, as it were, to prevent us having a discussion about the continuing resolution? Because going into a presidential election, the Democrats want you to believe that the Republicans are terrible and vice versa. And none of them want to admit they can't do their damn job. None of them want to
well
admit
played.
that they just can't generate a budget.
Yeah, I like how you pulled back from that F bomb there. That was impressive.
It was a struggle.
Well, I mean, that's kind of Congress's one job. I mean, Congress obviously has a lot of specific duties and details and whatever, and congressional committees and hearings and investigations and all that. That's actually, I'd say that's an important function of Congress. But constitutionally speaking, Congress has the power of the purse. When you say, oh, they can also declare war, well, even that is directly related to the power of the purse, because if they say, no, no, we're not funding this military operation, they've effectively shut down the executive branch's ability to conduct operations. So, I mean, yeah, you got one job, Congress, one. And I would love to say that this is exclusively a, uh, um, a Democrat problem, but I mean, when was the last time we actually had a budget? Like, are we coming up on like 15, 16 years at this point? I want to say that the last time that we had one was somewhere in the middle of W's administration, and that just about everything since then has been a continuing resolution. There might have been one budget under Obama as part of the whole deal to get Obamacare passed, but I don't think so. But suffice it to say, more often than not, every
The
4 to 6
last time
months.
Congress passed all 12 appropriations bills was 2006.
Okay, so it was somewhere in the middle of Bush's presidency. Yeah, I should just trust my memory. I'm a smart guy. Why would I do that to myself?
Yeah, remember when Hillary wanted to put RFID chips in everybody? Because apparently America doesn't, and the internet certainly doesn't. But Pepperidge
But
Farms
Epstein still
remembers.
didn't kill himself.
No, he did not. So, I don't want to go too deep into the budget discussion today, but I did want to point out that it was, in fact, a continuing resolution. Another gross failure by the Congress, the House, and the Senate to do their damn jobs and pass a budget. To which the raising of the cigarette smoking age, the legal age to buy cigarettes and vapes, to 21. Um, and I've got a lot to say just about that. As far as whether or not we have a budget, if you can't pass a budget, don't spend money. And yes, I do mean, and This is the last thing I'm going to say on the budget matter. There is not a single thing which is funded by U.S. taxpayer dollars. Not one thing which could not be eliminated to our absolute benefit. Nothing that is done with tax money could not be either better done by private industry or better not done at all. Categorical statement, no exceptions, and I stand by that. You got anything on that before I pop up the article?
No, 21 years old.
Whoops, wrong button. Boo. So, this from CNN. And you know what? We really don't even need an article to discuss this particular deal. I just wanted to pop one up. Now, the Donald, he signed this. I will be signing our $738 billion defense spending bill today. It will include 12 weeks paid parental leave. What the hell does that have to do with defense spending? Gives our troops a raise. Okay. Repeals Cadillac tax on health plans. Now that's... I can't support that in conjunction with anything else. I am all for Space Force. If we're going to have a standing tax-funded military, it should include the Space Force. If we're going to do things, we should do them correctly, and not having a Space Force is not doing things correctly. Same thing with Southern Border Wall funding, where I still maintain that all things that we need to be done in this country are better done by private industry. Anything that's going to be done, there are things that I would prefer be done with tax money, if tax money is going to be used for anything after it's been taken out of our hands at gunpoint. Raises smoking age to 21. And he seems to be happy about that. So, God, where to start with all the problems? Where to start with all the wrong here? Okay. First thing is in this tweet. This bill spends almost $800 billion. It deals with paid parental leave, soldiers' pay, funding a military branch, funding a border wall, repealing a tax on healthcare plans, and prohibition on smoking to a particular age. That's more than one things. Okay, so if I had my druthers, if I could pass a law today, and it were not end all foreign aid, it would be the one thing rule. The one thing rule. No bill considered by the House or Senate could contain more than one action item or be written on more or require more than one page. It would be one page and no more ever. And it would only do one thing. You want the smoking age to be 21? That is the thing that you vote on. It's a single sheet of paper, letterhead, smoking age is 21 across the country, signed, the dummy who's willing to push for this. And that is the only item that you are voting on. No pork, no addendums, no additions, no room for hidden extras. One page, one item, full stop, no exceptions, and I would force that retroactive. I would have every single law broken up so that each one action item per law, that each law that contained more than one action item was repealed in full, and each individual action item then presented for a vote of the House and the Senate.
Yes. We keep going on about the budget, and I swear the point we were trying to get to was the smoking age being 21.
Yeah,
So
it's kind of like the monk debate about political
about political
correctness.
correctness, and Stephen
an,
Fry's
an hour
like,
and 45 minutes later, Stephen Fry's, I'm still wondering when we're going to discuss political correctness.
yeah, that's a fantastic analogy there, sir. Well played. Okay, so I also have several things wrong with this, but at its core, I don't just have a problem with this in the legal sense. I have a problem with this in like the ethical, philosophical sense. Um, for some reason, we stagger adulthood and we have these extended periods of adolescence. For a long time, it was you could buy cigarettes at 18, but you can't buy a six pack of beer until you're 21. Um, you could join the army and before your 19th birthday, be trained, shipped, and dead in a country you didn't even know existed till you got sent there. That's cool. You're adult enough to do that at 18. You can get married at 18. You can borrow thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars and give yourself decades of debt to go get a useless degree at 18. You're allowed to do all that. Um, but you can't buy beer. And then there's other vices you were allowed to do at 18. You could legally purchase and view pornography at 18. And I'd argue that long term, that has the potential to be a lot more crippling of an addiction than just about anything else, because of the way it resets your brain with regard to sexual expectations. But that's cool. We can still do pornography at 18. My problem with it is, and don't even get me started on the voting thing, but my problem with it is, you know what? Fine. If if we as a society are going to decide, okay, at 21 you're an adult. Okay, fine. Then everything happens at 21. Or at 18 you're an adult. Fine. Then everything happens at 18 and you're an adult. In the state of Georgia, you can actually be tried as an adult before you're even 18 years old.
Yep,
And there's
depending on the
actually
crime.
a bill that's about to work through our state house that is going to alter that significantly. And I actually really agree with that. If I can be tried as an adult at 17, then I should be allowed to do all the things that an adult is allowed to do at 17. Why am I held to the standard? Why do I pay a penalty proportional to being an adult, but I don't get all of the privileges associated with it? So that's my absolute biggest issue with this. Like we're deliberately confusing our youth. You're grown up enough to do this, but you're not grown up enough to do that. And then we have the second layer. Is there a single teenager that is not going to get access to cigarettes because of this bill? Is there a single teenager that is not going to get access to vaping products because of this bill? Because pot's illegal. They smoke all that they want. Drinking's illegal. They still drink all they want. I mean, it's kind of an accepted trope in our pop culture that, oh, at least a couple of times a year, teenagers get together and get hammered in somebody's basement when so and so's parents are out of town. Well, that trope didn't come along by accident.
Right. Or they go party in the woods, or they go party on the beach.
Bonfire.
Yep. Log fest. Shoo, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, under prohibition, for example, actual prohibition, as terrible a disaster and as grossly failed an experiment from which we have apparently learned nothing. Um, Actually, I'm gonna walk that back a little bit, but let me come back to that. Uh, the prohibition of alcohol was done correctly under the law. in so much as it was done as a constitutional amendment. Um, Now, whether or not doing it was a good idea is a different point that I'll get back to in just a minute. But the fact of the
Spoiler
matter
alert.
is, say again?
I just said spoiler alert. It wasn't, but keep going.
Right. but as a matter of law, it was done correctly. In so much as there was an amendment to the Constitution which made it possible for that to be enshrined in law. As a matter of law, the Constitution explicitly forbids the government from taking on authorities which are not explicitly prescribed to it and explicitly demarcated and enumerated by the Constitution. If the Constitution of the United States does not say the federal government has the authority to impose a prohibition on the use of cigarettes before the age of 21, then the federal government does not have that authority. At best, under the 10th Amendment, it can be presumed that states have the authority individually to make that decision. But just like with the seatbelt law, speed limits, and the uh, and the driving age, those are things which the federal government forced on the states through coercion. So the driving age, the seatbelt law, and the speed limits, those are all done at the state level. But funny story, it was late 70s that they started pushing for it. Early to mid 80s that they passed it with seatbelt, with all three of those things. The federal government threatened to withhold certain funding plans, mostly road construction funding. If your state does not have a law about seatbelts, then you don't get this money for building your roads. You don't get this money for whatever internal thing. So if your state wants to get this money, which we stole from your state, so those things are authorities that are explicitly forbidden to the government by being non-enumerated powers of the federal government, which the federal government pressed upon the states through an act of flat-out extortion. I mean, full-on racketeering.
It's a nice road you got there. Be a shame if you couldn't maintain it after the winter comes and gives you a bunch of fresh new potholes.
So, now, prohibition was done and undone with amendments. The 18th and 21st, respectively, I believe.
Das stimmt.
Yeah, 18 prohibition, 19 women's vote, 20.
Yes, you were right. It's the 18th and the 21st.
Yeah, and the 21st was the repeal. And they did one thing. So, funny thing about prohibition. Women did that to us. While the men were away at World War I and not present to vote, the women decided that we should be legislating morality. And then all of a sudden, people who were otherwise perfectly law-abiding citizens were more than happy to break the law because a speakeasy was an adventure. And there was no public support for the law. And furthermore, there was no enforcement. Not that there weren't attempts, but by and large, the law could not be enforced. You can't bust every speakeasy. You can't find every speakeasy. And you sure as hell can't find every drug dealer. I mean bootlegger.
Well, when you break that down to the consumer level, you definitely can't find everybody that takes a drink any more than you can find every single person that takes a toke off of a joint currently.
Or owns a gun.
Oh. I see what you did there. We're looking at you, Virginia. You go right ahead and dance the boogaloo. See how that works. But no, that's kind of the point. I As I get a little older and more experienced and become wise enough to realize how wise I am not, and I mean exactly what I just said. One of the things that I have come to believe is that all prohibition, especially prohibitions on vice, no, they're terrible idea. Terrible idea. People won't give up their vice. It's just not going to happen. There may be some that you can push out of it, but by and large, like let's say you made cigarettes illegal today. Sure, there'd be some people that would quit smoking, but instead what would happen is like 90% of the people that currently smoke, they would just figure out how to get their cigarettes on the black market. So now you take an activity and you make it way more dangerous. That guy up in New York, the I can't breathe guy, Eric Rudolph was his name. Is this ringing any bells?
Oh yeah, the one that hanged himself with a cop.
Something like that. Um, do you know why the cops were on his ass?
Yeah, he was
Because
selling loosies on the street.
that's right. That's right. So I would argue that the state of New York is largely responsible for his death because the only reason he was able to profit from selling loose cigarettes and the only reason the cops had any reason to go after him for selling loose cigarettes is that there was a law on the books that said you are not allowed to sell loose cigarettes. So when you take vice and you make it illegal, I mean,
Now,
I'm going to go.
real quick for those of just in case there's somebody who's watching that doesn't understand, um, the law explicitly forbids, especially in New York, it's more expliciter there, I think. But you're not supposed to, like if you're a gas station or whatever, you're not supposed to sell loose cigarettes. Now, nobody's going to get on to me if I give a bum a cigarette for a quarter instead of just giving it to him for free because I'm not operating a commercial enterprise. Eric Rudolph was operating an illicit business. He was making money this way. He wasn't just asking to be remunerated for his inconvenience and giving up a cigarette to somebody who wanted one. He was going out of his way to solicit for business. He was selling them. Well, the problem with that, as far as the government's concerned, is taxes are paid on, or taxes are charged rather. Taxes are taken via a stamp on the pack of cigarettes. So when you open the pack, even though you've already paid your taxes to the government once you got that pack, unless you got it on the black market as well, now somebody gets to buy the cigarettes without paying the tax. So basically, what Eric Rudolph was killed for. I mean, let's be real. Eric Rudolph was a criminal. He was a repeat offender. He resisted arrest. He lost a fight and he died in a fight. Eric Rudolph killed Eric Rudolph through a series of bad decisions. But the thing that he was doing was illegal is reprehensible also. Two things can be true at once. Thank you, Ben.
Well, I'm afraid I'm going to have to call it, my friend. I have little
I
eyes looking at me
understand.
wanting cereal.
I understand. Yeah, we're a few minutes over, and there was so much more I wanted to talk about.
Prohibition bad.
Let me do this real quick. Okay, so I already pointed out that prohibition originally happened because women had just gotten the vote. The men were out of the country fighting World War I. Women gave us the prohibition law.
You're out of order on that.
So,
Suffrage was the 19th Amendment.
we got to double check that. Anyway, we got to the point that America was willing to tolerate new prohibition precisely by emasculating the American man. And so now we have men voting with their emotions instead of with their reason and their logic and their common sense. That's all I've got left to say on it today. No, it's not. I've got a lot more left to say on it today, but we're going to call it stuff to do. And we will see you tomorrow.
I'm literally going to Google if suffrage was the 18th